Hi. Miscellaneous stories. And this is the film The Tasters. A German woman moves to a village near Hitler's bunker. She's selected for a secret mission. Every day, she must eat the Führer's food to ensure it isn't poisoned. The film, partially based on true events, begins in November 1943 in Prussia. A German girl, Rosa, arrives in the small village of Pars, where her husband Gregor's parents live. The girl's mother died in a bombing raid on Berlin, and her house was destroyed. Her mother-in-law sets up a room with her son, who is currently fighting somewhere in the vastness of the Soviet Union. Over dinner, the guests inquire why the Reich soldiers fenced off the local forest. The father-in-law explains that Hitler's headquarters, a fortified bunker called the Wolf's Lair, is located there. The hosts also explain that due to the lack of men at the front, the girl, who worked as a secretary, will now have to work with her hands. Hard physical labor outdoors brutalizes a person. However, in the morning, soldiers come to the house to politely invite Rosa into a government-issued black van, without explaining why. 6 other young women are already languishing in the back. They are taken to a Wehrmacht-occupied building, where they are invited one by one for a medical examination. They even have their blood tested. After these procedures, the women are invited to a set table, where they are insistently offered lunch. Given the food shortages during wartime, they don't need any persuasion. The girls attack the food with a voracious appetite, despite the officer's supervision. Afterwards, they are told to wait an hour to see if they have been poisoned. This is the cook's way of testing the suitability of the Führer's dinner. The cook himself is confident in this, but you never know what could happen. The women are stunned by such practicalities. One even tries to induce vomiting with 2 fingers, but the officer stops her. The frightened guests wait for the fateful hour to pass. After confirming that the test subjects are all right, the cook calls the bunker to have Hitler's lunch served. The girls are sent home. Over dinner, Rosa tells her mother-in-law that she's been chosen to work as a taster for the Führer himself, with a salary of 200 marks. A simple matter. Eat well and pray that this time no one will try to poison the artist. The next day, the situation repeats itself. Struggling with the fear of death, the chosen ladies diligently eat everything. During the break between lunch and dinner, the women rest in the courtyard. There, Rosa meets Lenya, a young woman who tells her about the others. They grew up in the same village, and even know her husband. All except Elfrid, who also came from somewhere. Rosa promises to give one of her capital dresses to her new friend, which delights the village girl beyond words. December 1943 arrives. Accustomed to daily meals and no longer afraid of poison, the food tasters even converse with Hitler's personal chef during inspections. He explains why the Führer became a vegetarian. After visiting a slaughterhouse, he was overly impressed by what was happening there, including the pools of blood. Rosa receives a letter from her husband. He writes that he will be returning for Christmas leave. Rosa eagerly awaits his visit. Overjoyed, she even fulfills her promise to the line, and gives her one of her dresses. Rosa shares her joy with her colleagues in the culinary business, but they remind her that her husband still has to wait. She decorates the Christmas tree, and in the morning, she hears a noise outside. Running out into the snowy courtyard, she sees 2 soldiers. They have brought a letter stating that Gregor has gone missing on the Eastern Front. This news depresses Rosa, who refuses to get out of bed. But the Wehrmacht soldiers, standing at the Brandenburg Gate, ignore her worries. They drag Rosa out of bed, and drag her to work, where they're forced to eat for the Führer's safety. Upon arrival, she starts a fight with one of her colleagues, when she reminds her that she warned her about the possibility of a sudden widow. The soldiers separate the women, not forgetting to assign them to the disciplinarians, after which they return to the table to do their regular duties. But even there, Rosa breaks the rules by grabbing someone else's portion, which is prohibited. If you mix all the dishes and poison yourself, it will be more difficult to determine what exactly the poison contains. After lunch, she locks herself in the restroom to cry. Of all her colleagues, only Elfrid comes to support her. May 1944 arrives. The Führer has temporarily left the Wolf's Lairs, giving the tasters the day off. Rosa, out of old habit, writes letters to her missing husband, thus pouring out her feelings. Returning to work, the women meet Lieutenant Albert Ziegler, who has been appointed head of the facility. When Ziegler sends them home early, because dinner is cancelled, Rosa and several colleagues go to visit one of them, Heike. She owns a store where a young man named Ernst, too young to be drafted into the army, also works. During another break, Rosa, on her way to the bathroom, hears music coming from Ziegler's office. She comes closer to listen, which is why the officer catches her. The woman confesses that before the war, she sang in a choir in the capital, before moving here, to her homeland, to be with her husband, who was lost at the front. That evening, after doing chores, Rosa is lying in bed when she notices the glow of a flashlight outside. Looking out, she sees German officer Ziegler, beneath the window. Without waiting for an answer, he leaves. During another meal, Heike, feeling ill, has lost her appetite. Nevertheless, she is forced to eat. Lieutenant Ziegler personally holds the spoon. That evening, Rosa again sees a light in the window. The officer has come to her house again. Realizing these visits are no coincidence, she stares at him as she passes his office. She meticulously prepares for the officer's next visit, dressing in her best clothes. When he signals with his flashlight, she responds with the lamplight, then sneaks outside. Outside, Ziegler pounces on her with kisses, and she responds. They retreat to a barn to do what German cinema would become famous for worldwide a decade later. At dinner, Rosa and the others notice Heike feeling nauseous. Barely finished, she asks to go to the restroom. A soldier escorts her out, but reminds her that the food must remain inside. That evening, the woman confesses that she is pregnant by Ernst. This is a rather piquant situation, considering her husband is away at war. She will have to somehow explain the situation, When he returns, Elfrid admits that she can perform an abortion with improvised means. She was a nurse before the war. Another problem is that abortion is punishable by death in the country. The Führer needs loyal soldiers. Rosa spends nights with Ziegler, gradually growing closer to him. However, when her mother-in-law reveals she saw her son in a dream, Rosa is tormented by feelings of guilt over such infidelity, especially since her lover is also married. During another break, Elfrid announces that he has scheduled the operation. Rosa and Lenny come to support. Morally. Fortunately, everything goes well. Rosa gradually grows closer to Elfrid, especially during a nature excursion, while young Lenny splashes in the local river. After another meal, Rosie suddenly becomes ill. She vomits right there in the room, followed by 2 other girls who vomit what they ate. Since everyone had a different menu, those who weren't poisoned are sent to another room. The cook calls headquarters to cancel Hitler's dinner. The soldiers transport the distracted ladies to the infirmary to see how it all ends. After resting on their bunks, the 3 come to their senses and return to the dining hall. There, they continue their work, testing new dishes hastily prepared to replace the ruined meal. The frightened women refuse to eat, so the soldiers resort to persuasive measures, threatening the machine guns to get them to comply. Rosie is forced to obey first. During a smoke break, discussing what happened, Rosie rhetorically wonders when it will all end. Elfrid confides in her that the German troops have been dealt a severe blow by the Red Army, and are in a furious retreat. But in Germany, the authorities are keeping this under wraps, so as not to undermine national morale. The lieutenant summons Rosie to his office. He says he was worried about her, but there was nothing he could do. If he had slept with her, things would only have gotten worse. Although this explanation doesn't comfort the girl much, she still meets with him that night. Ziegler tells her that the poisoning wasn't caused by poison, but by tainted honey that got into the dessert. It's July 1944. In their free time, Rosa and Elfrid enjoy swimming in the river and sharing intimate conversations afterwards. Meanwhile, a secret affair with Ziegler reveals the officer's terrible secret. One day, he awakens from a nightmare. He dreamed that he was working in a concentration camp again, and was forced to execute his mistress. Rosa suddenly realizes that Ziegler had done horrific things, murdering prisoners, including a woman and children. This realization fills her with disgust towards the lieutenant. On the 20, during a break, the women hear an explosion in the forest. Black smoke rises from the wolf den. Believing it to be a surprise bombing, the soldiers order them to hide in a building, and then send them to Osvoyazi. Arriving home, Rosa learns from her father-in-law that Hitler is dead, killed in an explosion. This means she no longer has to risk poisoning herself with his dinner. However, that night, she hears the sounds of the radio, which survived the assassination attempt during Operation Valkyrie. The Führer addresses the nation to quell rumors and speculation. After the assassination attempt, security regulations were dramatically tightened. The tasters are no longer allowed to go home. They are housed in the same building where the dinners are held. After placing the women on 2 bunk beds, Ziegler, frustrated, goes out for a smoke, realizing that he can't just drag Rosa out on a date. During the day, an officer summons her, but tells her it's over between them. Sora infuriates Ziegler. He even threatens the girl, but only briefly. If anything happens to her, he'll have to endure a long and tedious explanation. In the autumn of 44, 2 things arrive: November and the Red Army. The atmosphere in the establishment is oppressive. The scale of the impending tragedy bodes ill for the Nazis, who are systematically preparing to burn all documents. A defeatist mood pervades the tasters. Later that night, Rosa can't sleep. She goes into the hallway, where Elfrid is smoking. A friend confides that, besides the illegal abortion, she has another guilty pleasure. In fact, she's Edna, a Jewish woman who narrowly escaped deportation to a concentration camp. With the end inexorably approaching, Hitler turns a wolf's paw into a den. The tasters are dismissed as unnecessary, and allowed to go home. As they pack, one of the girls is summoned to an officer. Later, she never joins the others in the back of the truck. At home, her mother-in-law, having saved the money she earned from the Naka, advises her to head inland. She and her husband will wait for their son to return. He's still listed as missing. However, leaving is problematic. The Wehrmacht has reserved all the trains for its own use, and there are no other options. Dinner is interrupted by the arrival of a German patrol. The soldiers are looking for Elfrid to arrest her for an illegal abortion. One of the friends finally let the scamper slip. Having searched the house, yard, and outbuildings, and found nothing, the Nazis, like the Führer's hopes for victory, disappear without a trace into the night. During the day, Rosa returns to the building, where soldiers are busily burning all documentation. The less evidence, the shorter the sentence. The girl asks Lieutenant Ziegler for help, arranging her a place on a train to Berlin. He asks where her Jewish friend is. Her real name has been revealed. He also knows that she knew about the abortion, but got away with it. The officer arranges a date with the girl. That night, Rosa leaves the house and runs toward a light in the barn. Ziegler is waiting there. He tells her to report to the station in the morning, posing as a volunteer. He will put in a good word for her. When he leaves, the girl calls out from the depths of the garden tools for Elfrid. Rosa, like in the Hans Landa meme, is harboring enemies of the right. She invites her friend to leave together in the morning. At dawn, the father-in-law takes the girls to the station in a cart. Rosa brazenly tells the officer at the distribution that they cannot take the trips Ziegler had arranged. Reaching the right car, they see a doctor, whom Elfrid begins assisting. After all, she is a nurse. Rosa spots Ziegler at the window. He has come to catch the fugitive. The girl grabs her friend and runs for the other exit, but the officer pursues them and orders Elfrid to stop. Rosa shields her friend with her body, but when she tries to escape, the lieutenant kills her with a well-aimed shot. Rosa bends over Elfrid's corpse, mourning her friend. Ziegler tears her from the body, and at the last moment, throws her into the car of the train leaving for the capital. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels, Rosa looks at her friend's hands, stained with blood. The film ends with a brief historical background about Margot Welk, the prototype of Rosa, the only survivor of Adolf Hitler's 14 tasters.